thank you so much for joining us. Today we have special guest Cameron Lamb from Gilbert, Arizona. Welcome, Cameron.
Thanks, Crystal.
So Cameron is in his second year of investing, and he has an amazing story to share. But first, Cameron, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you got into real estate investing?
Yeah, so I live in Gilbert, Arizona. I've been here for the last 5 years, originally from Los Angeles, California. Kind of did your traditional, go to school. I went out to school out in Utah at Brigham Young University. Joined Intel Finance, making a whopping $57,000 a year, which was great at the time. That was about 5 years ago,
Good for a college kid.
yeah, really, really good. And then really kind of happened upon real estate. Just you know, uh, had a friend, and he was renting rooms out for $325 a month out here, and I pretty much light bulb came on my head, and I said, "Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe that's something I should look into." So that's kind of how everything started.
Nice. That's the entrepreneurial spirit already creeping in during that
Exactly.
college year when you're starting to work. Something must have triggered to say, there's got to be another way to make some extra money around here.
Yep.
So tell me about your first investment. What did that look like? How did it come about?
Yeah, so I was living with my now really good friend Larry. He was charging me $325 a month. We were living in Central Mesa, just a simple bed. I paid $50 for utilities, so it was like $375 out of pocket. So the first 2 years at Intel, I was just saving a lot of money. Right? I didn't really have any expenses, didn't really have any girlfriends. So that
They would have
probably
sucked
helped.
all your money dry.
That probably helped with the expenses. And it was funny because we ended up moving out to a place in Scottsdale to be more like centrally located to just everything that was happening out here. We were paying, a whopping $550 a month, splitting that place. And just one day I was looking, I think I was driving in Gilbert. There's a lot of new construction down here, and at the time it was just literally like a lot of farmland. So I was driving down, saw these signs for new builds, and I went in, really just didn't know anything about buying a home, but talked to the sales agent, and she said, yeah, you can buy this 4-bedroom 3-bath house for 2,400 square feet, and the base price is $263,000. And being a finance major, I was like, $263,000. Okay, so if I get a mortgage and all that stuff, hmm, with all the upgrades, that's only going to cost me, $1,200, maybe $1,300 a month.
Mhm.
If I put 20% down. So in my mind, I said, maybe I should just do exactly what my old roommate Larry was doing, fill that spot with a bunch of roommates, charge them $400 or $500, and then essentially live for free. And so that's kind of how everything was spurred along, and how I guess really started the real estate rental business, if you will.
Nice. So you were involving yourself into what we call house hacking without even knowing it, just trying to make a
Yeah.
good financial decision from your background in accounting and things like that. And so then it progressed from there. What happened after that first experience where you bought the house? And I'm assuming that you had people move in. Did you move along with that plan? How did that roll?
Yeah, I was really selective on who I let move in with me. So, my buddy Larry came with me. He paid me $450, and it was funny because essentially I paid him for a couple of years, then he paid me for a couple of years. It was just kind of a funny situation.
Trade off.
Yeah, I enticed him. I said, "Hey, this is a brand new area. It's a new home." So, we'd lived together for a while. So, he couldn't say no to that. Had a couple other guys come in, um, and just really loved it. I was essentially they were paying my mortgage for me. I paid maybe $100 in utilities total, saved up even more money, and really still at this time I wasn't thinking about real estate as sort of like an avenue or a way out. And when I say way out, um, I started developing these goals a couple of years ago. I realized that the corporate life just wasn't for me. I still have my day job, and don't tell my employer this, right? But just the grind of just going into the office every day, being tied to a monthly reporting cycle because I'm in finance was just kind of like grueling. And I really just was sitting at work one day, and I said, I don't know how long I can like keep this up, right? So the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, okay, well, what do I need to do? What's a sort of business that I can start? I've always been really entrepreneurial. What sort of business can I start that will help me get out of the 9 to 5 grind? And
Mhm.
so it started with this rental, and still really didn't click in my head um, until I got married in September 2018. And my wife and I, we were talking about, or my now wife, we were talking about, well, where should we live? And, I suggested, well, why don't we live here and kick all the roommates out? Well, actually, I didn't suggest that. She suggested
I was gonna say that sounds like something the woman would say. That sounds like something that I would say. Kick all these guys out. I want my house for myself.
Yeah, you caught me. I actually suggested that we live in the master and then just keep the rooms rented out. And she was like, no, we're not doing that. So I, was searching for a place to live, and we found just a more of like a fixer upper home. Really not too much of a fixer upper, but it was 230,000, 4 bed, 2 bath. It was more centrally located, kind of like on the Gilbert Mesa border. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to put 7% down here instead of the 20% down that I put on the first home,
Mhm.
right? Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have done that much, but got advice from just people who didn't really know what they were talking about from like an investor standpoint. So we ended up moving into that house, and I filled the master bedroom in the other house with someone. They were paying me $600 a month, and then ended up actually making another bedroom in the loft area. So I got a general contractor who is licensed, and we made another bedroom, and then charging another 500. So that unit was cash flowing a good amount. Did the second house, and a couple months after we moved into that second house, I was just on Zillow, just like looking at properties, and I found this property on Adobe Street, and it was 6 bed, 3 bath. And I go, man,
Wow.
325,000. And the way that I do it, the way that I make the numbers work is I specialize in renting by room. So in my head, I'm thinking,
That's a
okay,
lot of
well,
rooms.
yeah, a lot of rooms, 6 bedrooms. If I charge, 450 to 500 a bedroom, that's $3,000, right? And I still wasn't really like a sophisticated investor. I wasn't calculating cash on cash. I was really just saying, okay, 3,000 minus the mortgage. I don't know what's the mortgage going to be, 1,700, something like that, 1,800. That's $1,200. And so I convinced my parents. I didn't have any money because we had just bought our second house. I convinced my parents. I said, hey, can you front the down payment money, and I will pay you guys back? And bless their hearts, they took a chance on me. They fronted the down payment money. I am still paying them back, but now on an accelerated schedule. And
Nice.
that's what really kind of started the domino effect. And after I bought that house, I started reading on Bigger Pockets, reading on, okay, what is cash on cash? What is IRR? How do you calculate if this is a good property or not? And then really started educating myself.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. And thank goodness for the parents that they were there to help you. That was like a big stepping stone. And
It
you said
was.
something that really resonated, and I think it resonates with a lot of our listeners, is that you're working that 9 to 5 job. And that's really what got your mind thinking about, gosh, what is there something else that I can do, so I can, maybe one day get away from this. And real estate truly is the answer for so many people. So that's why we're happy to share your story so that others can hear, how you got your foot in the door and then learn and maybe do something similar or the same. So now you're at 2 rental properties, the home that you live in with your wife. And what does the future look like for yourself? What are your goals at this point?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, my goal was, I said, wow, if it was crazy on that third property. I don't know if this is legal, but I listed the property without, we were under contract, but we hadn't, closed. But I listed the property on this Facebook group that I was on, and we had a ton of interest. And I actually, during the inspection period, I showed the property to all of the potential tenants and had them sign lease agreements there. And my realtor remembers that he had never seen anything like that. We got all of the lease agreements signed the day of the inspection, and I filled all 6 rooms. And I said, "Oh, okay, well that was easy." Uh, and yeah, so we moved on from there, and I still didn't have capital, and I said, man, I need to scale. I'm seeing deals out here. I know what cash on cash is now. I'm really looking for that 1% rule. And, the 1% rule is, you want to, some people go for the 2% rule depending on the market, but
Mhm.
whatever your purchase price is, you want to get 1% of that in gross rents. And
Okay.
if you can do that, you'll normally, be achieving double digit cash on cash return. Um, so yeah, I was looking at seeing a lot of deals for the 1% rule, and I reached out to my brother and I said, hey, do you want to go 50-50? I have these two other rental properties. I see this condo. Do you want to go 50-50 on it? And I'll manage it. And then all the cash flow that I have from the property, I'll pay you back for my in or my equity in the property. So he said,
Mhm.
yeah, you've done a good job. Let's do it. So expanded into that property. It was a condo with 15% cash on cash. Found a smoking deal 2 months later on a duplex in Phoenix, 40% cash on cash. That one was amazing.
Yeah.
Had cash at the time, so put in almost 50% equity. I think I owed my brother, 3 or 4 thousand. Was able to pay him back in a few months, and then we've just really taken off since then. It's I purchased a tiny home which rents on an RV lot. My wife and I have since moved from that second property to another property, and we're now renting out the old property. So house hacking and getting into the property and moving every year is another strategy. And now today we're at 10 properties. I have a couple other partners. We're in the process of closing another condo and a sixplex. So it's been a lot of growth in the last,
Huge growth for only 2 years in. That's huge
yeah,
growth.
yeah. So
That's really awesome.
my goals at the time really were to just, I figured if I could make six figures passively, um, that would be my goal. And then I could quit my job and spend more time with the family, or we could travel and, just manage the rentals. Um, that number has maybe shifted. Like that was my goal by age 35. The rate we're going at, I think we might hit that goal in a year from now. So it's been tremendous growth. It's really exciting. I love real estate. It's my passion. My wife, like she knows all about IRR, cash on cash. She can run numbers, and it's funny. Like I know that she doesn't really like love talking about real estate, but she knows a lot.
Yeah, it's good to have her on your team, and it's
Yeah,
great that y'all are moving so quickly. I mean, people get into real estate, it's all about time freedom and financial freedom, and you're definitely on the path to get there. So I heard that you started a blog since all of this has happened to start some conversation with people. Tell me a little bit about the blog and how can our listeners find that blog?
yeah. Thanks. Thanks for mentioning that. So a couple months ago, I posted something on Bigger Pockets, and that's actually how we got connected. And it was just literally a post about my experiences in real estate investing and how I've scaled. And I didn't expect it to have gained so much traction, but there's been such a positive response and so many messages in the inbox that I decided to start a blog. It's six-figure passive income.com, I think. Your passive income. Yeah, I should know the name of my blog. Um, and I only have one post. It was really for me to journal and keep myself accountable, and to kind of document the journey. I plan on updating it much more frequently. Just life has been crazy, but I do plan on updating it on a bi-weekly basis so that people can really see. I want to show newbie investors, how do you do cash on cash return? How do you run numbers? What do the numbers actually look like? I want to be super transparent for people who are, or maybe just not confident in, jumping onto the ship. They've been reading stuff on Bigger Pockets, but maybe sometimes Bigger Pockets can be overwhelming because you have people talking about, the 100 unit deal that they did that literally 1% of all real estate investors will ever touch, right? So I feel like my story is a little more relatable.
Right, right. And they can follow your story too and hear your journey over the next 2 to 5 years as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm going to do kind of go through every property, and some of the mistakes I've made, the things that I'm still learning, um, and just, yeah, hopefully it just puts a more personal touch um, to, to be able to see someone do it in process. Cause I still don't know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I think the mentoring aspect is really great, especially for newer investors who, you mentioned yourself when you started this, you didn't even know you're really real estate investing. You're just looking for some, monetary gain here. So I think hearing the journey and being able to reach out to you on that blog is going to be really important for a lot of our listeners. So if there was one piece of advice you could tell someone right now and they could just walk away with that, what would that be?
I mean, everyone's situation is so different, but I think what is the most daunting, I don't know, the most daunting thing about real estate and what kind of like keeps people from diving in is, purchasing a home is a big thing, right? Or a second home, that's a big deal. I think if you're on the fence about real estate, really the best step is to try and house hack. So if you're renting an apartment right now and you have an extra room, put it on Airbnb or get a friend to move in there, reduce your expenses, save more money, see how you might like managing something like that. Or if you live alone in a house and you have extra bedrooms, have someone else pay your mortgage, right? Those are easy, quick ROIs. You're gonna increase your cash flow by whatever you're gonna rent for, minus some expenses, and that will get your foot in the door. And I think just having enough faith to do it, right? So, our house right now, it's a 5-bed, 3-bath house, and we didn't really want to rent out all the rooms and do the roommate thing, but we did want to explore what it would be like on Airbnb. So we have a garage entrance and we have a front door entrance, and we closed off this front section with a barn house door. And I had my wife listed on Airbnb, and she's done a great job. We had a professional photographer come out. We spent like all this money on furniture, and I had to convince my wife that it would be a good investment because she was going to get all this new furniture for that part of the house, which she did. Spent $4,000 for one bed and a bath, and right now it's going to be bringing us $1,900 for the month of February for one room.
And because you separated it, you don't ever have to see those people because they have their
Exactly.
own entrance. So if
Exactly.
people out there are afraid of people walking through their kitchen, there's other ways to do this so you can split the home.
Yeah, you can get creative with it. And, there's just so many avenues. Don't be scared. I mean, also another thing that I would recommend too is if maybe you still are on the fence, I've had a couple people from Bigger Pockets and the blog actually reach out to me, who have capital. Right now, I'm in my hands in so many different deals that I'm sort of limited on how many loans I can acquire, because I have new builds and other stuff going on. But they have capital. They've reached out to me to essentially walk them through the process, go in on a deal 50-50 with them. Um, they'll secure the loan. They'll purchase the home. I'll show them how I, run credit checks, how I get renters, how to set up the bank account. Like there's all these little things. And we have a home we just closed on about a month and a half ago with an investor, and everything's all set up, and he's been really happy with how everything's turned out. So now he's hungry, and that sixplex I told you about, I'm closing on that with him, the same guy. He was staring at Bigger Pockets forums for 2 years and then decided to take the jump with me, and now he's all in. So
nice. Yeah, that's a great way to pair up. Have someone who is new but has the capital but doesn't really know what to do. We'll find an experienced investor like yourself, pair up, and then y'all can start making deals.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Cameron. I think this gave a lot of insight to our listeners, and it really shows how you can just get your foot in the door really easily without, having to spend a lot of your own money here. So we really appreciate it. Anything else that you wanted to mention to our listeners before we close out?
No, just if you want to follow along sixfigurepassiveincome.com, start visiting it, keep me accountable so that I update it, and hopefully you guys find a lot of value from this.
Great. Thank you so much, Cameron. We appreciate you having you on the show.
Thanks, Crystal.